Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the first science podcast of the 2021-2022 school year. I am one of your co-hosts, Ethan Vargas, with our other co-host, Daniel LaBuda. Say hi, Dan.
Hello.
And then with our amazing moderator, Mr. Augustinsky.
I am here. We don't have to continue with the Joe Nowak adjectives, but I appreciate it. Absolutely.
I think it's pretty fun. We might. And then we also have a guest today, Zach Stein.
Hello, hello.
And our topic today is Interstellar, the movie by Christopher Nolan, which Physics 1 students, I think, usually watch at the end of the school year, or at least AP Physics. So Zach, me, LaBuda, all took AP Physics last year, so we watched this movie with Mr. Aug. It was pretty interesting, really mind-bending, especially the concepts, and especially how it was really true to science. We watched a whole documentary about how the Christopher Nolan got a scientist. I forgot his name, Mr. Aug, if you want to.
Yeah, his name was Kip Thorne. Kip Thorne.
Yeah, and so Kip Thorne helped Christopher Nolan really write the movie, so it was really scientifically accurate, and it was just really interesting, especially all the like seemingly impossible physics that went on, but in reality, like they could be possible.
Yeah, gentlemen, if I may make a suggestion, maybe just because of time, we make this a two-part discussion, and that way we can sort of touch on some of the cool things that we know for sure, and then obviously, if you've seen the movie, there is a point where it just starts becoming even more mind-bending, and maybe that'll be a second part. Obviously, we want to warn everybody, spoiler alerts, right? If you haven't seen Interstellar, like, why are you listening to an Interstellar podcast? Although we appreciate the support, but we will say maybe stop listening to the podcast and go watch it and then come back and listen to our analysis. But gentlemen, maybe one of you can give sort of a summary of let's start with just the premise of Interstellar.
All right, so if I can take the liberty of summarizing Interstellar. Essentially, it's a man who goes to space. He needs to find new life for Earth, which is currently dying. Plants aren't growing as well, and the Earth is on a gradual downfall. So he's exploring multiple planets with his colleagues, who unfortunately, one of them meets their demise, and all the other planets are inhabitable. Until he reaches one planet that has gotten reports of maybe possible life. And that's where the actor Matt Damon comes in. They explore the planet. They find out that it's actually not habitable at all. Matt Damon kind of betrays them, and it's a weird kind of ending at that point. They get off the planet, they go into a black hole, and he goes into the future. He kind of gets spaghettified. It's a whole time warp kind of thing, and he becomes like a whole fifth dimensional kind of weird, not really science-based ending, but overall it's a great movie. Definitely give it a watch. And but the summary of the movie is great, but the physics behind it are even, I think, more interesting.
Absolutely. Let's talk at least about some of the physics that we remember. So let's start with the early on premise of the idea that we're in the near future, and Earth is quickly becoming uninhabitable. They talk about crops dying due to blight, and they go, all right, we need to find another place to live, right? And so this launches us into the interstellar travel portion of it, which is all about finding other planets, right, and finding things that are hopefully inhabitable. The remains of NASA are still around and have created this Lazarus mission where they send people out to go explore planets. And now we've got McConaughey going to check in on those results. So let's start with some of that. First, let's talk about wormholes, because a wormhole played sort of a big part in getting to those planets. What do we remember about wormholes? I say putting everybody on the spot.
Well, from the movie, I remember that they got sent into space, and they had to go into like cryogenic like, sleep, and so they went to like what, Saturn. And
So
once they made it to Saturn, they like catapulted around Saturn and they went into the wormhole. And like as they went into the wormhole, they like it was like shaking. And then I remember the girl that was the astronaut, she like tried touching like the side of the ship because like she saw like it like sort of like space bending, and then like everything was like being like spaghettified, and like everything was stretching, and then they came out into like the other area where they were gonna start looking for the other planets. So it was like kind of like a gateway into like the other uh, galaxy.
yeah, I remember in the after we watched the movie, we watched the Kip Thorne documentary. I remember that he said that at that part, like it's not exactly how it would be, at least in physics, because in physics it'd be like as soon as you pass through the wormhole, you'd be on the other side almost like instantaneously. But in the movie, Christopher Nolan wanted it to be more artistic and interesting, so he kind of stretched it out like you're actually traveling through like a tunnel in like as in a car. But in reality, you just like pass through one end straight into the other, and that was what I remember from the wormhole.
Yeah, absolutely. That's great memory, gentlemen. Yeah, we what is the hardest thing about finding other planets to live on? It's getting there in the first place, right? We kind of know that we wouldn't be able to live on any of the planets in our solar system, and yet they take so long to get to anyways. How on earth would we get even farther to find something else? And the movie's answer is a wormhole. And Daniel, as you said, yeah, there was a wormhole just outside Saturn that brought them to this other system of planets that they could go check out. Yeah, Ethan, you referenced the Kip Thorne documentary. There was sort of a lecture that he did about the movie. Again, Kip Thorne was the scientist behind a lot of the science of this movie, who started off with the premise of what would a movie look like if it was about modern physics and the modern physics was actually true, right? And yeah, he talked about how going through a wormhole would actually just happen almost instantaneously, as opposed to the tunnel, Daniel, that you described, which was done a little for movie magic purposes, right? Absolutely. But a worm, do we remember what the visual that Romilly gave during the movie was of what a wormhole was and how it worked? Had to do with paper and a pen or pencil.
Yeah, when he took the paper and then he took like a pencil and he held it like this, and then he stuck the pencil through the middle, and he said it'd be like bending space and time.
Yeah, absolutely. Space-time is kind of a bizarre thing. But what Romilly was talking about, Romilly, one of the characters in the movie, is that if you could find a way to bend space-time, which is kind of a combination of space and time, as its name implies, if you could find a way to bend through it and then poke a hole through it, that's like what a wormhole would be, right? To get from point A to point B, you have to travel the distance between them, unless you could fold the 2 points so that they're next to each other, in which case you could just jump from one spot to the other, right? This is a scientific idea that has some merit to it, has some scientific theory and principle to it, and yet we have never actually found a wormhole because we have no idea how they would exist in the first place. Now, the movie addresses that, although we'll probably have to save that for our second part discussion, because that's where things get really weird. But that's sort of the wormhole, which is the first big one.
Yeah, and another thing that coming out that like was real physics, or at least like pretty similar, is the relativity, especially due to gravity of
Oh
other
yeah,
planets.
we can't forget about the relativity.
Yeah, so basically, the reason that the astronauts, so like Matthew McConaughey, Anne Hathaway, and then Romilly, I don't know the actor who played him, they were sent into cryogenic sleep to make it to the wormhole because it takes like such a long time. And so that was like time passing on Earth. So they slept for like, I don't know, maybe like 6 months, maybe 3 or something. And then when they went through, like time just like changed completely for them too. So the concept of relativity was time is relative to you. So for the astronauts that went to the other planets, their time changed like maybe a day there, or at least this one instance they went to this one planet with all these waves crashing. It was so close to the black hole that it's like I think 1 minute or 1 hour was like 7 years on Earth time. So that means if they spent like any more than an hour there, it'd be 7 years passing on Earth in Earth. So Matthew McConaughey is like another spoiler. His kids like grew up to be important figures. At least his daughter was important in the science field, and she was an adult by the time like he came out of just that one planet. So I remember Kip Thorne talking about how gravity had a real effect on it. Like the pull of gravity caused time to speed up, or at least feel like didn't feel like it sped up to you, but it sped up to everywhere else around you, especially like
Right. It was relative, right? Hence the term relativity. So this is Einstein's theory of general relativity, which is that changes in the gravitational field, especially if they are extreme, can cause massive changes in time relative to other spots. Relativity, right? And so, yeah, Ethan, you bring up the planet. The first planet they go to visit because they think it might be inhabitable. They find out it's not inhabitable, right? But the problem is it's so close to a black hole that 1 hour on the planet is equivalent to 7 years back on Earth, because gravity is so strong. And yes, the crazy thing in terms of the story is that means that McConaughey spends about 3 hours on the planet and 20-ish years pass on Earth. And when he gets back to the spaceship, his daughter is the same age as he is, which is sort of the first time in the movie that you go, I'm sorry, what? How does that work? Right? And it's relativity. And that is a true thing that has been measured. They need to account for it, not to the degree that it happened in the movie, but they do have to account for it on GPS satellites that time can change due to gravitational pulls in different areas. Absolutely. Everyone's kind of looking at me.
Sort of continuing off of that idea, I'm pretty sure the black hole was called Gargantua.
It was called Gargantua.
If I remember correctly, in the documentary thing that we watched about Kip Thorne, he was talking about how Christopher Nolan? Yeah, he wanted like certain things to happen in the movie, and so he asked Kip Thorne if can this happen in the movie? So like 1 hour being equal to 7 years back on Earth, and he talked about how like that couldn't happen if it was just like a regular black hole. But then he's like, well, try something else. And then Kip Thorne tried like a whole bunch of different things, and then he found that the spinning black hole actually could make that possible. So I thought that was interesting. How like Christopher Nolan had to like try different things, and it actually turned out that science like proves that those things could happen.
Yeah, absolutely. It was this cool conversation between Kip Thorne and Chris Nolan where Christopher Nolan said, hey, for the movie, I need this thing to be able to happen. And Kip Thorne said, no, that can't happen. Right. And Christopher Nolan said, no, but I need it to for the story. And Kip Thorne said, yeah, but the science doesn't work. And they said they went back and forth. And Kip Thorne, he said he remembers Christopher Nolan going, well, just try it. Right. Just see if it would happen. And Kip Thorne said, by gosh, you know what? He was right. It was a very slim chance, very highly improbable, but it is possible, Daniel, as you said, as long as the black hole is indeed spinning, right? So sort of a cool case in which the science was kind of informed by the movie just out of necessity and went, oh, wait, actually, maybe it could happen, right? Improbable, but we don't need highly probable for the movie. We just need at least one case where it would be true, right? So absolutely. So there are your wormholes and our relativity talk. We are kind of running out of time for today. I think, like I said, we'll do a part 2 where we'll save the wild and wacky stuff of of the back half of Interstellar, last like 40-ish minutes, and trying to comprehend what in the world was going on with that.
Yep. We'll see everyone. We'll see everyone there. Zach, you can come back, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm excited to talk about the kind of weird things that happen when they actually go inside the black hole. How to stretch the possibilities of physics right there, but it's a really interesting part of the movie, I think.
Yep. Sounds like a great episode for the next one. We will have some more guests too at that time. But yeah, thank you everyone for listening, and we'll see you next time. This is the Science and Stuff podcast. Thank you.